Welcome to South West Londoner. I'm Michael Phillips.
And I'm Mariana Viveiros. And on today's programme we're talking to our young reporters about everything, going from grassroots to bubble tea.
Emily has been exploring how churches have dealt with the pandemic, and Lauran is reporting on a charity that helps people that have lost everything. Logan is going to be providing commentary on the state of grassroots football.
Michael will be talking about women's safety, whereas Rahima will be looking at Twickenham Park that has been revamped.
Joe will share his investigation into the whiteboards you see on the tube, and Amelia has been busy sampling South West London's latest bubble tea outlet.
And now we have Michael, where he'll be talking about Kingston's council plan to keep women safe. Let's have a look at his video.
Just a few wilted flowers is all that remains at the scene of what became a focal point for women earlier this year, after the murder of Sarah Everard in March, which shocked the nation. She was murdered whilst walking home to her house in Brixton after leaving a friend's house in Clapham. The murder had rippling effects across the UK and sparked a huge debate about women's safety and how women can feel when they're walking home alone late at night, and the conversations that they have with their loved ones about their safety. And as a result of this, Kingston Council have announced that they will be carrying out a year-long programme to help address the safety of women and girls in the borough. From this month, the first phase will include asking residents, businesses, visitors and staff to share their views around the safety of women and girls in the borough. This will be the beginning of a long-term campaign to ensure that the voices of all women and girls are heard loud and clear. And following this announcement, they released a video with a range of key figures outlining the aims of the plan.
Women and girls have a right to live a life free of violence. The safety of all women and girls has always been a high priority for us. We are committed to safeguarding and preventing harm, and we are working closely with the police and other partners to ensure local support services are accessible to victims and survivors, and that work is being done on a local level to tackle sexual violence.
We went to a park in Kingston and spoke to two women who shared their views around their safety.
It was kind of scary, to be honest. I wouldn't choose to do it. I'd always try and get a taxi if I could, especially after that Sarah incident. It kind of scared a lot of the women of today, basically, because you're always scared that you're going to get stalked or followed or even worse.
I don't feel safe on my own, like walking my dog sometimes, like especially my mum who's like disabled herself, like walking my dog. It does worry me because obviously like someone could approach her and just literally like take it. She wouldn't be able to like handle herself. People feel scared to even walk out the house with the animal because obviously it is so precious and they become so close to you and like part of your family. Either your dog could be taken away from you or hurt or whatever or injured, but also you've got to care for yourself as well.
We on the South West BCU believe that women and girls have a right to live a life free of violence. Police are here to help and do what they can to support victims by reducing harm and arresting abusers. If anybody has any concerns or information, you can contact the non-emergency police number 101 999 in an emergency, or you can report anonymously to Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111.
So Michael, what's Kingston's council next step?
So the next step in their process is they're going to be launching a survey, and this is going to be able to allow women and girls to express how they feel, and it aims to identify the extent of the harassment and the abuse that they suffered. It's going to be enable them, they can go online and they can fill in an interactive map, and this is able to highlight the areas that they don't feel safe in Kingston. It's going to allow the council to take action and hopefully improve the areas that women don't feel safe, so maybe improving lighting. It's going to be a multi-authority approach.
And why do you think this is such a big issue?
I think it's been a big issue ever since the murder of Sarah Everard. I mean, it become such an issue that everyone become united on. I mean, it sparked so much debate on women's safety, and I think Twitter became like a focal point of people expressing how they feel and the experiences that they suffered. I think most women have had an incident where they don't feel safe, and you can take the longer, better lit route. You can put your phone in your pocket, you can hold your phone and be on the phone to someone. It doesn't matter. The point is that you're still in danger, and there's just a risk that women don't want anymore. And I think they want to take a stand on that.
Right, so Kingston Council is like doing this right now, it's taking that big step.
Yeah.
However, how does this apply nationally?
It undoubtedly applies nationally. I mean, if you look at it down in Kent, the murder of PCSO Julia James earlier this month, she was just walking her dog in the daytime and she was murdered. And obviously you saw after she was murdered, people were scared to walk their dogs, and that again links in with the issue of dog thefts as well. That's another big issue at the moment, and I think women just do not feel safe. And I don't think, where Julia James was murdered, it was a rural area. It doesn't matter if it's a rural or an urban area, the risk is still there.
Right, and how was the process of your video?
I thought it was quite poignant when I went to Clapham Common and I saw all the flowers, because Clapham Common become a focal point for women being able to pay their respects and also lay flowers. And you saw the Duchess of Cambridge laying flowers. It was an issue that affected everyone, and it was so poignant to go there and see where people have probably walked and have not felt safe.
And how did you feel when making the video, as it is such an important issue and it should be shared worldwide?
I think I just wanted, in the video, I wanted to show how women were feeling, and I was able to speak to a couple of women who were able to express and share their views and their opinions on it. So it was really poignant, yes.
Thank you very much, Michael. So now we have Emily, and her video is about how churches are dealing with the pandemic and the contingency measures that are taking place.
She spoke to a Church of England parish in Twickenham to find out their experiences. Let's have a look.
The pandemic has affected almost every area of our lives, including religion. The government has enforced restrictions on places of worship, such as the wearing of masks, social distancing, and closing during lockdowns. I spoke to members of the All Hallows Parish Church in Twickenham to see how restrictions have impacted them and if they believe they are necessary.
I think all the churches I've attended have had social distancing in place and it's been adhered to. I think they provide both spiritual comfort and also social contact, obviously not physical contact, but just a sense of being together.
And I think it's very sad. Management here have gone to a lot of trouble to make sure that we're separated and wear masks and all the rest of it. And to me, during the lockdown, it's been my life saver.
This is a huge space. We could easily come, and there's enough room for social distancing.
Yeah.
And if we obey the rules and keep to that, I'm sure that we would feel very safe.
Yes, but I live on my own, and it's the one place that I come and meet all my friends.
Yet, like many other places of worship, this church are continuing their services online as they did during the first lockdown.
I phoned early in the last lockdown quite a few of my most senior citizens. A couple of them are 90, for instance. Someone else with medical conditions has not been out of the house since Ash Wednesday. Something about a live broadcast which is engaging in a way that recorded stuff isn't quite. And I know that people are missing things like live music, people singing, the human voice. We have a strong choir, and they felt very bereft. And it's gone. I emailed my talks to people and newsletters. Others, I printed those talks off, and every Sunday I would cycle around to the 90-year-old here and the 70-year-old there that had no emails or computers.
However, the Reverend ensured to spread a message of hope.
My faith is challenged by all of this. My strength as a human being is challenged by all this. So I'm sharing the same conditions as everybody else. But human beings are wonderfully resilient. This is not a world war, thank God. And the Christian faith has been tried and tested for 2,000 years in all sorts of unspeakable situations. And people have come through, people of all faiths. As the saints say, this too shall pass.
So Emily, first of all, why do you think this story is relevant?
Well, it's so relevant today because the UK has such a large population of Christians, and so it's such a big community, so it's affected a lot of people.
And who do you think has been affected the most?
I think the people who live on their own has been really challenging for them because they've been so lonely because the church is such a big community for them, and then having lost that, they've really lost that sense of community.
It's been hard, hasn't it? How do you think the online services differ from the in-person services?
Well, they're very, very different. First of all, going to church can be also a social event and something to do and a chance to meet people. So having services online can be very isolating. Also, you don't have the same kind of worship as you do if you go to church. So there's less hymns, there's maybe not like communion with the bread and the wine. So it's very, very different and less personal, I think.
With that social interaction, how does it work with the older generation that they don't know how to use laptops?
So it's very difficult for them. Some of them just miss out completely and have to worship in their own homes, kind of by themselves. But the church I spoke to, they actually went to some elderly people's homes to deliver it in person. But obviously, some people don't have that, unfortunately.
That's fortunate that they have that ability to do that. When do you think churches will go back to normal, so like how they used to be?
Hopefully soon, with the June date when the government restrictions will ease, because at the moment church services are still going on, but they're still socially distanced and some things aren't able to happen. So hopefully restrictions will be easing soon.
Okay, Emily, thank you.
Next is Lauran, who spoke to the managing director of Goldenhearted, who helped people who lost everything.
The charity also helps people affected by domestic abuse. Here's her report.
During the pandemic, the amount of people surviving on the goodwill of others has increased. The Goldenhearted help families and individuals that are in crisis, who need items at short notice, and have managers who specialise in mental health and domestic violence. They donate food parcels, furniture, domestic appliances, and anything else people may need. The group, which is run by donations and volunteers, has grown to have nearly 20,000 members since Christmas 2019. They have hubs across London and Surrey.
There's no judgment. You know, if you need a food parcel because you can't afford it, or if you need new clothes because you can't get them, and anything like that, it's just a case of people can ask for whatever it is they need, and people will offer it if they're in a position that they can do so. The management will send out text messages to the hubs and say, this is the situation, this is, you know, an adult or two adults, male, female, whatever. Can we all rally around and get what we need to make sure that we've got it over to them and stuff like that? And sadly, this is happening more and more frequently. And it's not just been women that have needed the help either. You know, in the time that I've been doing it, we've had men that have had to leave everything behind and only what they're wearing and start over from scratch. If you're in a position where you can help people, it's just as beneficial for you to do that. We get so many people saying, oh, you're so good at doing what you're doing and you're helping so many people from our hub point of view, but we can't be hubs if we don't have the support of our communities and our neighbours. So anyone that brings around a bag of pasta, as far as I'm concerned, is a hero, because that's one bag of pasta that I wouldn't have had they not have gone out of their way to deliver it for me. I've been in a position where I was in a managerial role and I was earning £70,000 a year less than 2 years ago, to being on universal credit, diagnosed with depression and anxiety myself. So within these last 2 years I've needed that help, and I've now got to a point that the group helps me as much as I help everyone else, because it's a reason to get up in the mornings and to keep helping people, because no matter how bad I feel my life got, there's still so many people that are worse.
So Lauran, very interesting video. Why do you think this story is relevant?
During the pandemic, the amount of people surviving on the goodwill of others has increased, and I didn't realise how many people are actually surviving on other people donating items. I mean, giving in the UK, according to the Charity AIDS Foundation, has risen to 800 million, and with without charities like these, people would literally be left with nothing.
And how did you feel when making the video?
When I made the video, I actually came home and cried because this woman and the team have dedicated their whole lives to helping these people who have nothing. I mean, there was everything from cots to food, and it made me feel like I should be doing more myself to help charities and people who don't have anything.
It's quite an emotive issue. What sensitivities were you aware of when making the video?
I was aware when making the video I couldn't ask any personal questions because they help people who have suffered from domestic abuse. So I couldn't ask any names or locations of where people have gone to because obviously these are all concealed because it's highly confidential. But then I could ask questions more about the facts of what they do, so where the items go, who do they help, how many people they have helped. I mean, the group has grown to have over 25,000 members in a year and a half, which just shows that they're literally like helping people survive.
And knowing that, why do you think charities like these are so important right now?
Charities like these are so important because it's a safe place for people to go to. I mean, the Facebook is closed, so people can message privately to people and say that they need help, whether this is because they want to keep what's happening concealed because they're in an abusive relationship, or they just feel, you know, a bit scared of asking for help. And people are suffering right now. The amount of giving is needed more than ever, and then the amount of money that charities are receiving has decreased. So like a third of charities have gone bust in the last year, and that just shows that these charities are more important than ever.
And they're quite vital, aren't they? Where are all the donations kept?
So the charities hubs across London and Surrey, so the volunteers, like the managers and all that, will keep all the donations in their house. So if you have anything to donate, message on the group and then the person will take it in. And then they have designated drivers who will pick up objects in the houses or will go to locations where, say it's a big pickup and they need beds and cots, they'll pick it up and take it to the people who are in need.
Okay, Lauren, thank you very much. So next up today, we speak to our reporter Rahima, and she's been to Marble Hill Park in Twickenham. It's recently been revamped, and it held an exhibition in April.
Let's have a look at her video.
We're at Marble Hill Park in Twickenham to explore the Exhibition of Hope and to find out about the Marble Hill Revived project. The exhibition features prints by the artist and author Charlie Maxey. Keep watching to hear from Rachel Morrison and Maureen Coyle from English Heritage, the charity that manages Marble Hill.
This is our second exhibition. The first one we had 12 prints that were all across the site, dotted in lots of different areas, but certainly from some of the feedback has been really positive, but also has meant a lot to the community, as these are such uplifting prints from Charlie. So much so that we know that someone in the community was having some quite dark thoughts and actually saw one of the prints in Marble Hill and thought differently about his world. It was an opportunity to be able to share about these beautiful spaces for people to explore them and then have a chance to look around and see what joy is being created.
Marble Hill is an amazing asset for the community. It is so well loved and it is such a fascinating and important story and history. So we as English Heritage just feel that it's really important that we invest in the property now so that we still have this glorious park in 100 years' time for the community to enjoy, so that the house is still standing for our future generations and for our grandchildren, and that's really what this project is about. There's been lots of really exciting steps throughout the revival project, and we're about 2/3 of the way through the project. Our most recent achievement was the opening of our Coach House Cafe, so it's open for takeaway, and the next step is going to be opening the internal spaces on the 17th of May, which is really exciting. One of the next major steps in the project is going to be the opening of the house in spring next year. The house is going to be open for free 5 days a week for 7 months of the year, which is going to be a huge change for visitors.
We've got a whole host of volunteering opportunities from gardeners to research volunteers, so if you've got the time, and please do get in touch, we'd love that. There's other ways which they can get involved in terms of events that are happening. So across the summer we'll have free chances to come and be part of our Arts in the Park, where we'll have everything from Bollywood to tango to jazz, all free on a Sunday between 2 and 3. There's lots of ways you can be involved, but just come and enjoy this beautiful 66 acres of gloriousness.
I am really looking forward to seeing people experience the new spaces that we've opened in the park, in the woodland quarters. I think each of those areas have such special atmospheres and feelings, and really the stories as well associated with them. So we'll have new interpretation panels across the park which help people understand the history of it, but just to see people experience that and to allow them inside the house as well. Previously it was really restricted access and people just didn't have the opportunity to enjoy or experience it. So I think that's what I'm most looking forward to, is welcoming back our visitors and allowing them to experience Marble Hill as a whole.
And for me it's just the same, having this opportunity for it to be free. You can come in and pop out and pop in again whenever you like. And also we're building a large schools programme, so it'll be an opportunity for young people to really experience the local heritage and to have a chance to experience it in many senses. So there'll be a fantastic smellscape downstairs, sharing about Henrietta's love of tea and the Georgian consumerism, to upstairs where we're exploring Henrietta as being a woman who had a disability.
Marble Hill is undergoing a big transformation. Come along in the upcoming months to see it in its new glory.
So Rahima, first of all, why do you think this story is relevant?
During lockdown, parks were one of the few places that remained open, and especially during the first lockdown last year, we were only allowed to go out for 2 reasons, which was for essential needs or for exercise once a day. So a lot of people went to parks for their daily exercise, so that just makes me think that a lot of people have been to the park in the past year. And now that the weather is getting warmer, people are still going to parks just for walks, and when it's summer, I think people will go to the park to have a picnic or just to sit outside and enjoy the nice weather.
So even during lockdown, people have been going to the parks. Do you think parks are now being more appreciated more than ever?
Yeah, I definitely think parks are being more appreciated now because, like I said, at one point they were one of the few places we could still go to, and it gave people somewhere to go to other than the supermarket or their own home. So I think that's one reason why it's made people really appreciate them a lot more.
So how do you think this will benefit the people of Twickenham and the surrounding areas?
It will benefit them because it gives them a new, lovely, huge outdoor space for them to go to, and because it's in Twickenham, it's easily accessible for them because they can just walk to the park since it's close by to where they live. And parks can be used in many different ways. You can go to the park for a walk, you can go to the park for a picnic or to do sports, so it will have a range of benefits for people of Twickenham and the surrounding areas.
And what is the history of Marble Hill Park?
So Marble Hill was designed to be a peaceful retreat for Henrietta Howard. She was the mistress of King George II when he was the Prince of Wales. It gave her somewhere to go to get a break from the busy, crowded 18th century London life. And Marble Hill House was built in the 1720s, and that's where Henrietta actually lived.
So that's fascinating, the history there. In terms of the future though, what is it looking like for the park?
So the park is continuing to be revamped, as you said, and as it's continuing to be revived, more people will come and visit the park, especially next year when the house will be open to the public. So I think the park's future is looking quite bright, and I think it will be successful in being a popular place that people will choose to go to.
Okay, Rahima, thank you very much for talking to us today.
Our next guest is Logan, and he's going to be talking about the return of grassroots football.
He's been exploring what has changed because of the pandemic. Here's his report.
After the government's decision to allow for the return of grassroots football from the 29th of March, parents and players have got a slice of normality back to their daily lives. The FA released a statement in response to the government's update in which it said, We welcome the UK government's update today regarding the COVID-19 roadmap for easing lockdown restrictions, which means we can look forward to the safe return of grassroots football from the 29th of March for both adults and children. The FA also confirmed in the statement that the grassroots season has been extended until the end of June to provide extra flexibility and time for leagues to complete their fixtures if they wish to do so. There couldn't be a better time to be back playing football with your friends on a weekend, and I spoke to a player who has recently had their season resumed and got their thoughts.
I think the restart of grassroots football is good. I'm just glad it's back, getting back outside, socialising with other people, seeing my mates again. Obviously, as months and months on end we've been out due to COVID. I'm just happy it's back again, restarting back to training, getting the fitness back up again, ready for games to come. My team's been completing our fixtures this season. We've been put into a league of 4 teams, including ourselves. We've played 2 games already, we've won both of them. We have a game this Sunday against Cove Rangers. Hopefully you can win again. And game the week after, hopefully you can win that one as well and win the little league. It's quite different for our team as well, we was doing really well in the league, probably one of the best teams in the league as well. So we had a lot of spectators coming down to watch us every week, watching us play, but now unfortunately it's been limited to 1 parent per player. Yes, I have found this season difficult as a player, as my fitness was obviously a lot better than it is now. I was training multiple times a week, 4, maybe 5 times a week. Had sessions with my one-to-one coach, goalkeeper coach, who's a semi-professional footballer. But now I don't do that with him, as the 1 metre rule distance thing. So now I just train 3 times a week with my under-18 team and my grassroots Sunday league team. My team's been affected by the suspension of the leagues. We was on course to win the league cup, other cups, a lot of things we was going to win, but as the COVID's come around, we've had to cancel it, and it's a shame we couldn't play our final that was meant to be played due to COVID, obviously. Yes, I think the restart to football is important, as obviously it gets people out again. People have been stuck indoors for months and ages. It's good, and I also think it's huge for people with mental health issues. They get to go outside doing things that they love, including me, doing things I love, playing football.
It's clear to see that players are enjoying getting back into a routine and doing something that they love again. Every grassroots team across the country will be hoping for a more normal season next year, with spectators back in their numbers. I think it's fair to say that just playing football on a weekend has now become even more special.
So Logan, first question, what is the future looking like for spectators?
Yeah, so currently we are in step 2 of the government roadmap, and what this means for the spectators is that they are not permitted to attend matches on private land. However, they are allowed if they are accompanying a child under the age of 18. However, from May the 17th, this will turn to step 3, and this has a knock-on effect for grassroots football. Spectators will be permitted to attend matches on private and public land, as long as they're following the social distancing rules and the gathering limits of 30.
And how do the players feel about this?
Yeah, so first and foremost, they're just really glad we're back playing. They've obviously missed playing for months, so just getting back on the pitch is just something that they've really been looking forward to. Seeing their friends again, obviously, and mentally as well, I think it's really good for them. In terms of spectators, of course, they miss the fans, the supports from their parents, because obviously they've introduced a 1 parent per player rule now, so that parents having to alternate who goes each week. So obviously the kids are a bit sad that they can't have all their parents watching, but in the weeks to come, I think that's going to change.
So you just alluded to it there, but how are the games different now compared to the past?
Yeah, so the games aren't different at all, but what I would say is the format and how the seasons are progressing is different. Pre-pandemic, the seasons are running smoothly. They were halfway through the seasons actually. However, COVID hit, seasons had to be postponed, and since the return of grassroots football from the end of March, the FA's introduced mini leagues. So these teams are playing in 4 to 5 teams each. They're playing, I think they've got games until the end of June, so they're completing their fixtures up until that point. And yeah, I I'm sure they'll be playing for a little cup at the end of it, so that competitive side of things is still there. It's just the season that's just been different.
And how long is the season going on for?
Yeah, so as I alluded to, it's going to be the end of June. So these teams will be playing up until that point. Of course, it's going to be boring playing the same teams over and over, but as I mentioned before, these players are just really glad to be back playing, and that's what's there. That's where the enjoyment comes from.
So you said how the players might be feeling, but how do the parents feel about the one parent per player rule?
Yeah, so when I spoke to a parent the other week when I was at a game myself, they said that it ruined their routine, because her and her partner used to go to every match, and of course since this rule has come into force, they've had to alternate who takes the child, so it's kind of ruined their routine a bit, which is obviously sad for them. They're not happy about it, but obviously they've got to follow the rules. And as I mentioned before, since May 17th, the rules are going to be changing, so these players are going to have to have both parents come to watch them. So that, I think parents are going to be really glad, and fingers crossed that can remain.
Okay, Logan, thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
And now we have Joe Marshall, who has been looking into the origin of the whiteboards you see on the underground.
And he spoke to All on the Boards, the dynamic duo behind their inception, and explored what motivates them to produce the signs, which have now turned into a book. Here's his report.
If you've been on the tube in the past few years, you're probably familiar with whiteboards bearing inspirational quotes. Originally a small creative project by two anonymous TfL workers, All on the Board has since spread throughout the underground, with advice, poetry, jokes and artwork appearing everywhere from the Piccadilly line to the Docklands Light Railway. Jeremy Chopra and Ian Redpar have since revealed themselves as the instigators of the craze. I asked them how they felt about their success. Given the times we're living in, this took place over Zoom.
It's lovely to be a success because means you're reaching a lot more people. So the success means that a lot of people out there hopefully are in a better place.
Like being creative, kind of pouring out our hearts and our own feelings is kind of therapeutic in a way. It's a distraction against anxiety for us.
2020 saw the release of a book compiling dozens of the eye-catching signs.
It's a pick-me-up book, you know what I mean? You can dip in and out of it, or you can read it the whole way through, and it just lets people know that anything is possible. We've kind of put together a book during a global pandemic.
Do you think it will take off around the world?
Do you know what? People from all around the world, from New York to Russia to Australia, they've said, why can't our metro system do this?
If anything, it kind of highlights the human side of the tube here, what we do. It shows that there are people working there, and we have thoughts and feelings, and we see your thoughts and feelings as you come through the stations. I mean, we did see before the pandemic, up to 4 million people a day going through London on the tube. So that's a lot of faces, a lot of anxious faces, a lot of happy faces. We've seen people fall in love on the tube. We've seen people lose each other and then find each other.
I asked Ian and Jeremy about other creative initiatives on the tube, such as libraries.
Well, you was working there the other day, Black Horse Road. They've got a little library. Well, no, it's pretty impressive little library, isn't it? In the ticket hall.
Yeah, that one's really good because they actually get really good books in there as well. They get some really good books in there, and that's the thing about those book clubs is it's about the commuters. It's about the people who live around there.
You know what? I think it's Gloucester Road. They have like an art exhibition on one of the platforms, a disused platform.
Yeah, they do.
Train comes in, you see it out the window, like some of the statues and like the art.
Yeah.
It's about hope, life, love, positivity, grief. And it's like when you hold it, it's like physical evidence that dreams can happen and like anything is possible. And I'd buy it. I've got a copy, but if I didn't, I'd certainly buy it.
Joe Marshall, Southwest Londoner.
So Joe, first things first, what has happened to All on the Board during lockdown?
Well, it has become a reduced service. As I was walking around the tube to make this film, I noticed a lot of the whiteboards were sort of tucked out of the way, so you couldn't really see them. and a lot of the ones that were on display were informative as opposed to creative. So didn't really have any character or anything like that.
And what do you think of the whiteboard yourself?
Well, I have to admit, when I first saw them, I did find them quite annoying because if it's a Monday morning and you're going into work or whatever and you see a sign telling you to cheer up, that's not going to go down well. I found it quite grating in the morning, but now I think they're brilliant, having looked into the full scope of what they're all about.
Yeah, I've seen them on social media. So how did you go about filming your piece?
So I went to various tube stations and filmed with my iPhone. I got some B-roll from outside the stations. In the piece I used a lot of still images from the book that Ian and Jeremy have written.
What do you think is going to happen to this project?
I think it's going to go from strength to strength. I think, as they said in the film, it's taking off worldwide. I think people are going to get more creative with what you can do with a whiteboard. Maybe there'll be another book or even a film at some stage.
So do you have a favourite whiteboard?
I like the ones that appear when there's gigs. So like at North Greenwich, when people go into gigs at the O2, they'll have a whiteboard with lyrics to songs or, I don't know, some message about the artist. And I think people really like that. And the thing about those ones is everyone who goes to the concert sees it as they file through the station.
Okay, Joe, very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Our next reporter is Amelia.
She's been to a bubble tea shop in Twickenham and she spoke to the owner about the growing craze.
Let's have a look at her video.
We are here at Bubble Tea Hut in Twickenham to speak with the shop owner, Radon Bushy, about how it was opening during a pandemic and any difficulties he faced during it.
My name is Radon Bushy. I'm the owner of Bubble Tea Hut in Twickenham. So we actually opened on the 5th of April. So it's just been over a month now that we've been open. This was actually I think it was solicitors, and then the landlord, he turned it into a shop. And then we saw, obviously, it was still a solicitor's when we actually got the property, but he said that he wanted to turn it into like a small shop, like a A1 shop, which is what this is. And straight away we were just like, the area is obviously something that attracted us a lot to get in this shop. We had intentions of it being a bubble tea shop from the start, so we just thought straight away, let's go for it. Myself, personally, I've always been like captivated by Asian culture, so I was in like a small food hall. First time I saw it, and I was just like, what's that over there? I was with my partner, and then we literally just went over and asked the lady about it, like, what is this? She obviously gave us a brief insight into it, and then we were just like, hey, let's just go for it, let's try it. And then ever since then, I was just like, going to every bubble tea shop up and down London. So in the end, I was just, because my brother's my business partner, so we were just like, I was just like, we should definitely start like investing into something like a bubble tea shop. I grew up in Isworth, and obviously this area has been somewhere where we've always come like to eat and just like do like a bit of general shopping. So we knew the area had high foot traffic, especially when the rugby's on. And there's like 3 schools around the area, St Mary's University as well. So it's just like the perfect area for the kind of target audience that we were looking for. The main thing I would say about this during the pandemic is just the laziness that it gave you. So everything took a lot longer than what it would have if it was just like normal life. So I'd say that was one of the things. Some of our machines and stuff come from like abroad, so it's just like some of the deliveries and stuff were longer than what they would have been. And yeah, but the main thing I would say is just the general like feeling a bit like lazy and obviously a bit like scared of when you're able to open and just like not knowing, you know, the unknown. It was literally like the unknown, so you don't know if you're gonna get everything ready and then you have to close. The most rewarding part is just like when like customers come in and they're like excited about something new in the area, something that they don't really have in Twickenham and the surrounding areas. And it's just like the kids, the mums, and then people obviously enjoying our drinks, and actually, you know, when I go outside and I see people carrying the bubble tea hot drinks, and I'm just like, it makes me proud. So I'll say that was the most rewarding part.
So hello to you, Amelia. Where did bubble tea originate from?
So bubble tea is sort of split into two halves. Obviously you've got the teapot and then what we know as the tapioca. So tea has always been a really big part of Asian culture, especially East Asian culture. And people in Taiwan, which is where bubble tea originated from, to answer your question, originated in the 80s. And obviously people in Taiwan were drinking tea, but obviously they were getting a little bit bored and wanted to sort of change it up. And a tea house owner in Taiwan in the 80s sort of saw tapioca at a market, and he decided to combine the tea and the tapioca together, which is how bubble tea was sort of created. And then tapioca, which is kind of the other half, is a starch that's extracted from the roots of a cassava plant, which is known to Brazil, and was brought over to West India, Africa, and Asia by the Portuguese in around, I think it was the 40s. And it's also used for flatbreads, and weirdly enough, when I was researching into this, doing laundry as well. And the balls are obviously made of tapioca. They're sort of white, hard, and powdery, and then they're boiled in sugar and sort of caramelized, and that's what turns them black, chewy, and sort of the tapioca that's at the bottom of the drink.
Oh, that's a very interesting story.
I didn't know that tapioca was used for laundry. That surprised me.
Yeah, a little bit. And how popular has it been during lockdown?
Well, honestly, I'd say during lockdown probably not too much, because I think part of the experience, like getting bubble tea, is like you actually go into the store. But what I can say, and this also obviously it definitely applies to myself, I was definitely like going to more bubble tea shops after lockdown, because like obviously I'd missed it, and I even at one point like was using Uber Eats and all of those to sort of get that feeling back. So I'd say like during lockdown, obviously not too much because those places were shut, but definitely like now that we've sort of opened and we're sort of going back into normal life, you know, it has increased.
Yeah, thank God for normal life. What's the most popular flavour there?
So when I was talking to Radon, he was telling me that their most popular flavours are Assam, which is like pearl milk tea, so basically black tea, and then mixed with milk, as well as matcha, which is like a powder, and then you pour water into it, as you saw in the video. A lot of the teas that they make are originally powders, like they're milk teas, and they pour water into it, and then obviously the milk. So yeah, Assam and matcha, and then in terms of the fruit flavours, because it obviously isn't just milk tea, fruit flavours, he said they're peach and then mango, because it's, you know, like kids can buy those sorts of drinks as well. Yeah.
Is this the first bubble tea shop in Twickenham, and is it popular?
Yes, it is actually. There is a shop sort of near to where we are, but they're a Vietnamese store, and they do food as well as bubble tea, whereas Bubble Tea Hut is just exclusively bubble tea. So yes, it is. I'd say it's quite popular, especially like I guess on Fridays, like when it's the end of the week. Every time I walk past it, there's always a lot of people in there. So yeah, I'd say it's pretty popular.
And how long has the store been open for?
So it opened on April the 5th, so just a little over a month now. So not too long, but obviously from what I can tell, it has been doing really well. And Radon also told me, you know, like he's constantly thinking of new ways to sort of bring customers in. He came up with a drink called the Bobacino, which is boba and a cappuccino combined, and it's a coffee drink, kind of like iced coffee. And then he recommended, you can obviously get, apart from tapioca, you can also get jelly toppings and those sorts of things. He recommended to me the coffee jelly. I tried it and it was really, really good. So he's, you know, him and obviously lots of other owners as well, constantly thinking of ways to bring in those customers.
Sounds very interesting. I might have to make a trip there after here today. Thank you very much, Amelia. So next up today, the pandemic has been a struggle for so many businesses. Mariana has been to speak to one business owner who's self-employed, and she told her some of the issues she's faced during this pandemic.
I'm here today in Victoria to find out how the pandemic is affecting self-employeds.
Good evening. My name is Joanna Wood. I run a handful of businesses actually, but my main core business is interior design and architecture.
How is COVID-19 affecting your business?
It's not a disaster, but it's pretty terrible for us. Except that the very, very lucky thing for us is that we're coming under the construction heading. So in terms of interior design, we are allowed to continue to go to work. We are considered, if you like, key workers. On the other side of my business, the retail shop was closed for the second time on Friday, just as all the Christmas decorations had gone up and all the stock had been put out, all the investment has been made, and at the moment we're looking at opening on the 2nd of December. So for the retail, it is a disaster. For the interior design, it's very hard work and it's very stressful being a boss, but we'll survive on the interiors side. I think that different people in the workforce dealt with lockdown in a different way, and some people were absolutely fine and other people became very anxious and positively paranoid actually about the illness. And it was, you know, a mixture of people who were being a bit saucy about the system, and then a couple of people who worked here who I feel were genuinely anxious and scared of catching the pandemic.
What do you expect the government to do now?
Well, the government have just put us into a further lockdown on going up until the 2nd of December, which I think has been done and instigated on inefficient data. I don't believe that the figures that we are being fed as the reason for the lockdown are completely accurate, and whenever questions are asked, the information seems to be woolly and not completely clear. My feeling is that what we should do is protect the elderly and the vulnerable and the people who have health issues, and that the rest of us, you and me, should get on with our life, get on with our work. And I am particularly concerned that these issues are affecting the young generation, the people in their 20s and 30s. I think it's a disaster for them.
Mariana, Viveiros, Southwest Londoner.
So, Mariana, hello to you. Why do you think this story is relevant to the audience?
Well, it's a pandemic and everyone works, and we had to stay home and work from home if we could. So I do think it's very important right now to explain the issues that, for example, self-employed people are going through, because they, in order to get paid, they have to work for themselves. So I do think it's very important right now to get their side of the story, what they're going through and how they're dealing with.
What update do you have in terms of the business?
Well, she has two parts for the business. She has the sites where she and her team decorate homes and whatever, and she has the retail shop. The sites during lockdown continue normally. They still worked because they come under construction, so you're still able to work. And for the retail, they recently opened on April. That's slowly getting there to how they used to sell and promote things, so slowly it's getting there.
And in terms of the government and the support, how has she found that?
She was very happy with the support that the government gave her. Obviously you have the grants, and she was able to get loans from the bank as well. She had about 4 grants in total. So she's been able to use them to help out the business, and also, she had reserves, so she'd been saving money from since the beginning when she started until now, so she's been using those as well.
And what was the process in actually filming this? How did you find that? How did you go about it?
I just thought, in general, in a pandemic, who's being affected the most? In my opinion, is self-employed people right now. So I wanted to do a story where I would put their version, their side of the story, to show to the world what was actually going on. So I do think, that's very important right now.
It must have been really hard for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. How has the business adapted during the pandemic?
Well, it has been very tough when it comes to the retail side, as she explained. In terms of the rest, she's been picking up smaller projects than she would usually do. She only does like sort of big ones, and she's been taking small ones to help out the business as well.
Okay, and that rounds off the end of the programme. Thank you to our talented reporters for sharing their wide variety of stories from across South West London.
Thank you for watching, and let us know what you think on our social media. Thank you and goodbye.